All right, everybody, welcome back. We are doing a deep dive today on something that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
It's called self-xenophobia.
absolutely.
So we're going to be looking at this concept
Yeah.
through excerpts from a piece called Understanding Self-Xenophobia, Internalized Bias and Identity.
Okay.
And, it's something I think we can all relate to
Yeah,
when we start to think about it a little bit more deeply.
for sure.
This whole idea that xenophobia, classically is about pushing away the other,
Right.
the foreigner, the person from a different culture. But self-xenophobia really flips that on its head.
It does.
It's about, having these negative feelings towards your own cultural background.
Exactly. And the source really digs into that.
Yeah.
It talks about it being a form of internalized oppression where,
Wow.
all of these societal discriminations and stereotypes you encounter out in the world end up getting internalized.
Right.
And then they lead individuals to kind of reject aspects of their own heritage.
Yeah, it's like almost taking on that role of the oppressor,
Yes.
but turning it inwards against yourself.
Exactly. And it can manifest in such subtle ways.
Yeah.
The source actually mentions a study about second-generation immigrants
No.
who feel pressured to, change their names or downplay their accents to
Right.
fit in,
Yeah.
They might even avoid speaking their native language in public
Right.
or reject traditional foods or customs that they grew up with
Oh, what?
just as a way of trying to escape that prejudice.
That is a really powerful example.
Yeah.
Because, it's not just about some, abstract feelings.
Right.
It's about real world choices that people are making
Absolutely.
and navigate these really complex pressures.
Yeah.
So what happens then?
Yeah.
What are some of the consequences of kind of having this internal struggle?
Yeah. The source points to, a range of potential consequences
Okay.
from low self-esteem,
Mm.
identity confusion,
Yeah.
to more serious things like anxiety and depression. It can also create this sense of alienation,
Okay.
both from your own cultural community
Right.
and from the dominant culture you're trying to assimilate into.
Like you're not really belonging anywhere.
Exactly, stuck in this kind of cultural limbo.
Yeah, it's tough to hear about the impact this can have on people.
It is.
But there are things that can be done, right?
Yes, definitely.
The source also talks about ways to combat this self-xenophobia.
Uh-huh.
So where do we even begin?
Well, the source emphasizes two key strategies.
Okay.
The first one is fostering self-acceptance,
Okay.
and that involves, really recognizing and challenging those internalized negative beliefs.
Right.
It's about reclaiming your narrative, celebrating your heritage.
Okay.
The source suggests things like learning more about your cultural history,
Okay.
engaging with art and literature from your culture,
Interesting.
surrounding yourself with more positive representations of your identity.
So it's like actively pushing back against those negative messages.
Yeah,
And replacing them with these positive ones.
exactly.
But what about the bigger picture?
Right.
How do we address the root cause of those negative biases in the first place?
That's where that second strategy comes in.
Okay.
Challenging societal biases.
Right.
This is about actively combating prejudice and discrimination whenever and wherever we encounter it.
Okay.
It's about advocating for more inclusive representation in media education and in all aspects of society, really.
That's a big task.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a huge task.
But, the source argues that we really need to create a climate
Yeah.
where all cultures are valued and respected.
Right.
So individuals don't feel this pressure to, erase or deny parts of themselves.
I see. So it's like a two-pronged approach then.
Yes.
Individual healing and societal change working together.
Exactly.
Well, I think this has really highlighted how self-xenophobia
Yeah.
is so much more than just an individual issue.
Yeah. It's a reflection of these deeply ingrained societal biases that we need to be addressing on multiple levels.
Absolutely.
And it leaves us with a lot to think about.
It does.
If internalized biases can make us question our own identities,
Yeah.
how can we create a world where everyone feels empowered to embrace their heritage
Right.
and celebrate the richness of all these different cultures?
That's the question.
That's the question, isn't it?
It is.
I think that's something worth thinking about.
I agree.
Thanks for joining us
Thanks for having me.
for this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you.